Hello, hello. Okay, so let us dive into talking about how to storytell specifically for the interview process. Um, this is one of my favorite topics, and I think there are so many important parts to the job search, right? But when it really comes to getting the offer, storytelling, and this verbal interview process is a pretty huge part for most of us. So first and foremost, going into this, knowing humans are natural born storytellers, and if it's not a skill you feel super comfortable with, we can build your skill with that. We can build your competence, therefore your confidence. And I know I mentioned this in another video. In doing so and building the competence and the confidence, we will then be able to be more present in the conversation. And that presence, really being with whoever is interviewing you, whoever you're in a conversation with, is really going to stand out because it's such a challenge for so many folks, right? Which is fair because we live in quite a distracted world. So bringing that confidence and presence is going to have a huge impact. So going into storytelling, I'm going to outline the behind the scenes, how to organize yourself and prepare yourself. But the thing to really keep in mind is we want to really remember who we are talking to. So who is the listener on the other side, and how can we deliver value through what we are saying specifically to them? So allow that to be your North Star, just like we did with the resume. Why does this matter, right? So that is what we're bringing into the interview process. So we're keeping that listener in mind. I also would love for your stories to be memorable and unique and really grounded in numbers. We'll talk about that. And also concise. So again, recording ourselves, really practicing, seeing how long these stories are, and have a positive energy to them. And that's not always super accessible. Sometimes we have tough past work experiences and workplace trauma or other tough things, and we maybe are not feeling so positive. And one of the most important things you can do, I'm not asking you to not have your emotions or to not be real or to ignore what is true for you. And we know that the folks listening to in this interview process are really evaluating for, am I going to want to work with this person? And we all get our range of emotions. Nobody is awesome to work with 100% of the time, I think. Not 100% of the time. And how can we bring our best selves forward through this interview process? And so a little side practice for you, if you will. I've worked with many clients who have challenging past experiences or even current experiences, and that energy can show up in the interview process. I recommend write it down, write all of the emotion down. Maybe it's a letter to former boss or colleague or whoever or whatever, and allow yourself the space to have that emotion and put it on paper. And I'm into burn rituals, so you can safely, somewhere safe, light it on fire and sort of bring that release through if that resonates. And maybe it doesn't, also totally fine. Maybe there's another process that will allow you to honor the experience of whatever that emotion is, so that can be real and true for you. And we can try to bring as much positive energy into this process as possible. So that may not be relevant to you, and awesome. And if it is relevant to you and it helps, I'm so glad. And there might be a bunch of stuff in between there, and I'm sending you all my support energetically around that. So going into interviewing, you can start with Googling common behavioral interview questions, or some companies specifically have a certain style of interviewing or a process. You can totally ask your recruiter, what kind of questions should I expect? And a lot of times they'll prepare you if you've got a specific role or a technical role or something else. Do your research on that and see what could be most supportive. What is super helpful is knowing in this process what an interviewer is doing, what a hiring person is doing, is they're evaluating your skills your experience and how it's relevant to the role they're hiring for, the problem they're solving, how you're the solution, and they're listening to see if what you've done in the past, what you'll be talking about as you interview, is going to support them in the present and in the future. Okay, so again, we're keeping that who is listening to us, who's asking the question top of mind as we create these stories. So I recommend coming up with 3 to 5 like major scenarios. So those can be, you can think of them as like challenges you've overcome, things that you've accomplished, maybe major projects, situations. Those are kind of, that's where like the meat is going to be. Other things that might help, like it can be tough to know what we're bringing to the table when we're good at something. So you can think of, what do people always rely on you for or compliment you on? Those are skills, right, to highlight and bring forward. If there are things like you realize there are topics in the workplace that you love talking about, you're generally oriented towards certain challenges or problems, like again, those might be some good areas to pull from. So coming up with like 3 to 5 major ones that we're going to pull, 10, 15, however many behavioral interview question answers from. That's a great place to start. And I love the STAR method. If you haven't heard of that, it's situation, task, action, result. So structuring your answers, keeping those 4 things in mind. There are other structures, so you can Google those, or if you've got something different that works for you, share with the group. We really want to make sure we answer the question, which seems like a duh, and sometimes it doesn't fully happen. So this is why preparation is really, really helpful. So we want to make sure we're answering the question. So step 1, get a sense of like what those questions might be. Google, ask the recruiter, phone a friend, whatever. And then we want to have that list of big situations we can pull from to come up with our answers. You don't need a huge, big new situation for every single question. We're going to have some major situations that we're going to pull all the sub-question responses from, right? Sub-stories, if you will. So how I recommend structuring it to my clients. So again, bringing in that STAR method, and I'll highlight that as I'm talking. The first sentence, so let's say, the first question is, tell me about a time when X. Yeah, there was a time that I had situation X and I overcame it within 2 weeks and saw 110% retention on something, right? So obviously I'm completely making that up, but if you can round yourself in a win from the jump, you are going to have their ear, and you've already answered the question, and the rest is just going to be in support of it. Okay, so starting with a win, bringing that answer in right away. And I will say you got kind of your situational, what would happen if types of questions, or the behavioral, like tell me about a time when. I always want you to ground them in something you've actually done or are currently doing. So that kind of hypothetical, what would you do if? Yeah, actually, I've experienced this before, or I haven't experienced that exactly, but there was this time when, and then give a real example. So bringing it back to what you have actually done to showcase your relevant skills and how that relates to the problem that they're solving, right? So always tie it back to how you could be a solution somehow, even if it's not perfectly exactly the same. And if you haven't done it, again, what is something maybe similar? Or, oh, okay, in that question, they're evaluating if I have X, Y, and Z skills. I do, and here's another way in which I've shown that, right? So you can also think about the questions from the perspective of, what skills are they evaluating me for? What do they want to know about my experience and what I can do to solve their problems, okay? So back to, sorry, I know I'm jumping around a little bit, and I'm sorry, but there's a lot to this, and hopefully you're able to track it. So first sentence, we're going to start with the win. We are going to go into the situation and the task. So the situation and task basically give us context on what happened. A lot of people spend the majority of the time diving into the context. We just need context to support our actions and results. Context is not that important to the listener. They want to know what actions you took, how you took them, why you took them, because that's why they're going to hire you or not, right? So I just like to assign 20%. You get 20% of, a 2 to 3, 4 minute response to give enough context to set up your actions and results. So here's what happened. That's a little bit of the situation. Here's what I needed to do. That's my task. Now the actions I took, I want 50% of your story to come around that. Tell me what you did, why you did it, who you did it with, if that's relevant. Really showcase those transferable skills in the story, and your values, and help us understand how you would be the best problem solver to the problem that we've got. How are you the solution to the problems that we have? So 50% is going to come in on your actions, and then the remaining 30% is going to be around the results. A lot of people forget the results, but the results are what ground us in why you're an effective solution person or problem solver. This is where those numbers came in, like I promised, going into the resume, how those numbers are going to set you up for success, all that resume process to going into storytelling. So draw from there. It's an excellent resource. And don't forget your numbers. Don't forget your results. So again, pull from the resume, phone a friend if you need to, again, think about what you were able to accomplish or overcome. So whatever helps you think about those things. And again, everything in this interview process is to evaluate, are you going to have you done what we're looking for? And if you can show me through your storytelling, through your examples, not just tell me. So if you've never heard this, show me, don't tell me. Show me through the stories with the actions you took and the results you created, then I'm going to see you could be a great contribution to our team. You could be the solution we're looking for, right? So this is going to make you stand out from a lot of people who interview. Storytelling is so critical to this process. And yes, we need this information. We need the stories that you're bringing in. And energetically, it's huge to be practiced, confident, and present. And I know, like I said earlier, we want to bring in that positivity. So lean into lessons learned, what you're moving toward, not what you're moving away from. So why'd you leave your last job? Or what are you looking for moving forward? Making sure it's in alignment with the company hiring you. What do you want to do in 5 years? Don't say something that does not... it's not valuable to them. Make sure you're in alignment and you're bringing that indication that you're going to be a great employee for them, with a positive attitude, someone that they're going to want to work with. So that is a lot of information in multiple different directions. I hope it is helpful. Take your time on this. It is not an immediate process. I recommend recording yourself and taking a look at how that goes. Time yourself. Again, we don't want 10-minute answers to interview stories ever, just about ever. So we're really aiming for about 2 to 4, certainly less than 5. And mock interview with each other if your group members are down or someone else who's in your life who's down to do it, and have them offer you feedback, specific feedback. What could be clearer? What was my face doing? Was anything confusing or off-putting? Really get the feedback that's going to up-level you, and the positive feedback. That was freaking excellent. I love how specific it was when you said this, and I was unclear on the next thing you said, or that particular thing didn't add value, and you said something later on, I think you should move to the front, right? So see if you can get that really specific feedback, because that is going to up-level the game. Okay, I'll pause there. Rock on. Keep getting those job applications and outreach messages out there. Connect with your group if you need support, and we'll be checking in again soon.